All right, I want to welcome everyone to the 8th Vanitec Energy Storage Committee meeting, another webinar as we did this summer back in June. Thank you all for joining today. Before we get started, I am John Hilbert, CEO of Vanitec. If any of you would like to take advantage of it, we do have this meeting being interpreted into Chinese. So at the bottom of your screen, or at the top, depending on how you have your set up, there should be a little globe there, and you can choose to click on English if you want to hear only the English, or Chinese if you'd like to hear the Chinese interpretation for the meeting today. Before we get started, I just want to walk you through the antitrust policy. I'm not going to go through this whole screen in detail, but here's a couple of quick reminders for our call today. We've had all of our presentations reviewed in advance, that any remarks on pricing have to relate only to historical pricing. The data that's being presented is sufficiently aggregated or public to meet US and EU antitrust safe harbor guidelines. No discussions about the effect of historical data on current or future prices. No agreements today. And then all the information on proprietary aspects of your technology will not be shared. So I'll keep an eye on these things as we move along. I'm going to turn things over now quickly to the chairman of the Vanitec Energy Storage Committee, Mikhail Nikimorov, to give us some greetings and a couple other words. So, Kyle.
Thank you, John. And thank you, everybody, for joining. This is our 8th energy storage session, although only the second time we are doing it virtually. We've seen some pros and cons of this format. So keep bearing with us as we try to expand what we offer through this type of process. We've got a very exciting session for you today. We've got a session. So here's the agenda. There's a few topics we're going to cover. So one is we're going to have a deep dive into the vanadium redox battery industry in China, and we've got an exciting three presenters of three of the leading VRFB manufacturers in China, from Rongke Power, Shanghai Electric, and VRB Energy. And we have presenters from each one. That session is going to last about 60 minutes. Each company will present, and we'll actually also have time for questions and answers. If you have those as they're presenting, just pop them into the chat. We will make sure that they kind of align with any kind of Vanitec requirements.
Then one quick thing. We're asking people not to do it into the chat. Use the Q&A feature, please.
The Q&A feature. So don't use the chat. Use the Q&A feature that's right there between the chat and the participants. So yes, put your questions in the Q&A feature. Then we, as we actually do in all of our sessions, we've got an update on the vanadium market that Terry Pearls is gonna walk us through, and that's always an exciting session, given there's always a lot of questions as to what's going on with vanadium in the market. We have also another new topic that we'll cover today. We've got a presentation from Texas A&M on work that they have done on the life cycle assessment of the vanadium redox flow battery technology. It's actually an extension of work that we've done on vanadium in general, including steel, and it's all part of our what we're trying to communicate in terms of how vanadium actually reduces the carbon footprint of humanity. And specifically, this presentation will talk about how the vanadium technology, the vanadium redox flow battery technology, and the sustainability aspect of that. And then we've got a session at the end on some of the work that we're doing around marketing and sustainability. And there's going to be some really cool things that Sawella from Leaf Communications is going to share with you as well there. And if all goes well, we'll get this done in about 2.5 hours. And thank you. And a lot of the content will be available on the Vanitec website afterwards. So that's one of the benefits of this kind of virtual setting, is that it's not a once-off. If you miss some of the content or you want to share with others, it'll be available there, and we'll think about creative ways of packaging and communicating some of the cool insights and content as well. John, if we move forward. So yes, thanks for correcting me again. If you do have questions throughout any of the sessions, just drop them in the Q&A function. We may not get to all of them today, but that does give us an opportunity to add them in later. And I've already talked about things, right? It's being recorded, and then yes, you will get a link to a survey, which I'll get to at the end. So, like, just a bit about Vanitec, right? So Vanitec is the kind of our mission is to, expand markets and promote a stronger vanadium industry. We are the only non-for-profit organization to represent the vanadium industry. It is set up to represent kind of the vanadium producers, but as we have, as the use of vanadium has expanded, so have the focuses of the organization. There's a lot of benefits to membership. We think about technical uses, market development, health and safety issues, and as this webinar suggests and actually offers, it's also a forum for collaboration to understand, how vanadium is used globally. Move forward, John. Here's a list of our members. You can see that they cross the world and basically all the continents. Quite a few members, mostly on the producer side, but we do have some companies that are either involved in exploration and also some involved in the technology of making vanadium electrolyte and also battery companies as well. We basically have three committees. One, which is the one that's kind of organizing the session today, which is the Energy Storage Committee. On top of that, there's a Market Development Committee focusing more on the main use of vanadium to date, which is in steel and other types of alloys. And probably the part where we spend the most amount of our work and effort is around health, safety, and environment. So there's a committee covering that as well. And needless to say, there's also G&A as well. If you are interested in membership, here's some of the information. Certainly, it's a lot more. The onus falls upon the producers. However, we do open it up to anyone who has an interest in vanadium, whether or not they can be a producer or a user of vanadium. Specifically, if you want to come in through the Energy Storage Committee because you are a vanadium battery company or a startup who's looking at that technology, there is an introductory membership fee that is basically a fraction of what anyone else pays. There's a lot more information here. On the screen, I won't read all of it. If you do have questions and are interested in membership, just follow up with either John, Yuli, or myself, or just go to our website. We do encourage you to join because that's kind of how we develop some of our content and also steer where Vanitec should be focusing. Although everybody who's participating on this webinar will have an opportunity to do that as well. Just not on a monthly and daily basis. If we move forward, John. So in terms of how to kind of help us steer, what we did when we started the Energy Storage Committee is we kind of asked for a survey of the industry as to what our priorities should be. And you can see the results of that survey in the top right. And so based upon that, we formed priorities and basically devoted resources and time to doing that. And you can still see some of those things. So for example, there was a lot of question around what's going on with the market. And every single time we have a session, we ensure that we cover what's going on with the vanadium market. As kind of questions have evolved, we've added certain points. For example, the reason why we have the session on China today is because, especially in the West, we get a lot of questions. What's going on in China? It's the largest vanadium market. We are hearing about some large companies there. So we wanted to have a session to demystify it. One important piece that we would like to understand is, how are we doing in terms of the current priorities and how should we adjust some of our priorities going forward? So if you do get a chance, please click on that, follow that link, and tell us what, how we're doing against, our current priorities and what our priorities should be going forward. Doesn't mean that we will necessarily do that, but it's important for us to know what are the people outside thinking as well. Move forward. So that's the introduction. So we can now get into the content of our session. And we do have an exciting panel. If we would have been together in person, we would have called this a panel. It's kind of a virtual session with presentations and Q&A. And I personally get a lot of questions from analysts, from reporters, and just from like regular people in the energy industry, which is, well, I'm actually not seeing a lot of news coming out of China, or Japan for that matter. I hear a lot about what's going on in Australia, both on different types of technologies, getting a lot of information out of the US, out of Europe, but not a lot out of China. And at the same time, we as the vanadium industry know that a lot of activity happens in China because 50% of the vanadium market is there, both in terms of production and consumption. And a lot of the big players in the vanadium redox flow battery industry are there as well. So we want to have a session to kind of demystify what's going on in the industry in China. And it's extremely exciting to have, you know, 3 of the leading companies present here today. And we're just doing this in alphabetical order, so there's no priority here at all. And to kind of demystify that. And so we've got Ronke Power and Dr. Bin Li will speak to that. We've got Mr. John Wang from Shanghai Electric, and we've got Minyan Huang from VRB Energy as well. So it's a really great set of presenters. And without further ado, I'd hand it over to Dr. Li to talk about what Ronke Power is doing. And again, we'll provide about 10 minutes for each presentation, and then we'll have time for Q&A. If the presentation's running a little bit over, you know, we'll have a little bit less time for Q&A. So keep in mind what other questions you want to ask and who you want to direct them to. Dr. Li? And you might still be on mute.
Is that okay? Better?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, sorry.